After years of traveling through Western Canada, there are a few mistakes I won't do again. And most people don't see them actually coming.
So let's start with the one that I see most often and the one that causes the most damage. If you look at Canada on the map here, it might seem to be compact and easy doable, but it's not. One might think from Banff to Vancouver that might be doable in days. Some of them even would plan to do it in 7 days. But believe me, then it would rush and it would be just driving each single day. And we shouldn't forget that from Banff to Vancouver, it is about 850 kilometers long. And if you think of driving from Winnipeg to Calgary, it might seem equally long as from Vancouver to Banff. That's actually 13 hours of driving. And if you think of the Icefields Parkway that is up here, that's a stretch of over 230 kilometers. It's a scenic drive, but generally, that's what I'm doing as well. I'd recommend to plan in a whole day for the trip. And not just 3 hours that Google says. That's a classic. When you overload your itinerary, what's actually happening? You burn fuel unnecessarily. You add accommodation nights that you haven't planned for, and your food and activity spending goes up the roof. The sad thing is, you actually eliminate any kind of recovery. The main thing that I would plan or give you on the way here is to choose fewer regions, build in buffer days, prioritize experience over mileage. And here comes the main thing. Structure doesn't limit your trip. It actually saves it, and it saves your wallet too. Now let's move on to the smaller brother of the first topic, of the first mistake where we talked about overloading the itinerary. And that is underestimating drive times. Google Maps might show 3 hours, but it actually will take 5 hours. And the thing, or the reason what Google doesn't account for, is you might come across wildlife during your trip. There might be a construction zone or hazard, or there are several pull-out zones for the scenic Instagram worthy like picture stops. And another thing is maybe you can't go or use the full speed limit. And that all adds up and are things you haven't planned for. And that easily 3 hour drives gets longer. And when you underestimate these drive times, you arrive late. Rush activities, you might even lose daylight. And then it's super annoying to set up your camper and hook it up when it's dark outside. And sometimes you even pay penalties for arriving late because you couldn't make it in time. So smart planning assumes slower movement, especially in the Rockies, where Google says 3 hours, but you technically need to budget 4.5, 5 hours, and you'll be glad you did it. Let's talk about the next topic and waiting too long to book, and this is a real budget killer, and it surprises people each single year. Peak season in Western Canada is from mid-June to September, and during that window, Banff, Jasper, Whistler, Vancouver, they don't just get busy, they sell out super fast, and we talk here month ahead. And just to visualize this, if you book a hotel in Banff during off-season, it might cost $200 to $700 a night, but during high season, it's double the price. The same logic goes for SUVs, campers, or any rental car type you want to book in summer. And that's why, myself included, locals recommend booking these things 6 to 12 months in advance. And what you need to know is, and you will not be rewarded for it. If you book or try to be a walk-in guest, they usually don't find any accommodation anywhere at all. Or you might end up in a place where it's dirty, filthy, and where you would sleep very badly and leave you with a bad experience. So when you wait too long, accommodation prices spike hard. Rental cars can triple, and Lake Louise and Moran Lake access becomes seriously limited. And you might find yourself forced into an inconvenient location, like mentioned before, that even fit your route. And what you need to do instead, going backward, is avoid last-minute bookings, because they're usually not any cheaper and you have less good options anyway. So it's not a strategic decision to do so. Rather book high demand stuff early on. Example, you want to book a trip for Canada next year, start booking in fall. So let's say the trip is in 27, you start booking your things in October, November 26. And what you can do then, when you have booked the main stuff, then you can build out your route accordingly. And that brings us to the sibling of mistake number 3, booking without a strategy. We talked about booking early, and here's the flip side that catches a lot of people off guard. There's still this romantic idea floating around that people shouldn't overcommit the trip in advance. Stay spontaneous, keep it loose in some destinations. That might even work fine, but it just doesn't work for Western Canada during high season. And residents know that, and locals too. They know that Banff, Jasper, Whistler, Vancouver, they require reservations and planning way ahead. And like mentioned before, 6 to 12 months, that's the great window to do so. One thing you need to consider, especially if you travel with a group or with kids, we'll figure it out when we get there. It just doesn't work. It might have worked when I was the first time in Canada, and that was in 97, and there you were still able to do so. And that's what many people miss. It just doesn't work nowadays anymore. But here's the thing. The real mistake isn't booking too early. We talked about this topic as mistake number 3, but it's actually booking without a structure. And that's where it gets really expensive. If you change accommodations each single night, booking places before you know the route, ignoring cancellation policies, or locking yourself into rigid plans with zero flexibility, and moving every single night, that's adding up quite fast. And it rather increases packing stress, fuel efficiency. Honestly, this will tire you out tremendously, especially with kids. Instead, try to build your trip around bases. Book a place where you stay for 2 to 3 nights, meaning stay longer in strategic locations that you can use as a base for day trips, or you decide you want to stay there and just relax and wind down. So you have this flexibility. That will drop your stress dramatically, and it often lowers your overall cost. Sorry, Jesus Christ. One more thing most travelers completely miss. Booking early can actually save you money. If you think of booking early, there are a lot of great things or advantages to do so, actually, because there are early bird discounts, Black Friday, Halloween deals, even Christmas sale is sometimes happening. That's what I've saw as well. So it really awards you to book in advance. And the great thing is, the sooner you book, the more selection you have. Of course, some campgrounds are not bookable certain months before the high season, but that usually is mentioned on the homepage. An important thing if you travel to Canada, and usually takes people off guard, is that Western Canada isn't just one climate. It can change by elevation, by places, by province, and even in early summer there might be still snow in the Rockies, or in late summer there is still the chance that it can start snowing from one day to the other. So you need to prepare it. Another important thing is some roads are being closed during off-season, like the Modern Lake Road, are the things that you need to check in advance. And when you plan without checking, you might need to pivot to pay tours you hadn't budgeted for, book alternate lodging on short notice, buy emergency gear maybe because you haven't packed up your right clothing, and maybe you end up restructuring your entire route. So seasonal research might sound boring, but it prevents really expensive.
Hey, just a quick pause. If you like this structured and research-driven approach, then this channel is all about it. I break down the routes, logistics, tools, and real expectations so you can build your smart trip from home. If that sounds like your style, then you feel right at home with me on this channel. So let's get back to the mistakes.
If you talk about self-service, most often people kind of know about it, but it gets forgotten quite easily. Because there's sometimes you lose connection in mid-trip and you haven't realized it at all. So there are long stretches in Canada that have no self-service, famous example is the Icefields Parkway, or another example is when I drive to my family in Horsefly. At a certain point, there's no service anymore. So if you rely on your phone for navigation and you need reservation confirmations, emergency contacts, and you hit a dead zone, that where the trip starts to fall apart. So without a backup plan, you might miss reservations, you can't pull offline, you use reroute clarity completely, or waste hours backtracking. And the simple fix is actually making sure you use an app that offers offline capabilities, make screenshots of your reservations, or old school, print out all the stuff. That is important, just in case, you never know. But still a doable option, so keep that in mind. Then another important thing is when you prepare a vehicle or rent a vehicle is taking order preparation. We all know Western Canada is beautiful, but between beautiful parts, there are also quite often very long stretches with limited services. We've talked about cell service, but we also need to talk about fuels. So fueling up in time, better do it too often than too less, especially Rockies is a famous area, or even other places, maybe before you hit a pass road. I know that because I speak out of experience, but anyway, prepare for that. Then make sure your car has proper tires, especially if you are in a mid-season. We, as an example, had to do that. At the rental station, person asked where we go, and where we headed to, and it's just worth to invest this additional time, additional 5 minutes when you talk with the people at the desk, that you mention things like you will travel on gravel road. If you're off in mid-season, maybe you need an all-season tire and you get a different car maybe. With that, it's important that you just don't sign everything. Ask important questions like that, or even regarding insurance, what's covered. And just take this additional time. That's important because if you're not prepared, then you're looking at an emergency roadside call. It can be expensive if you need to purchase last minute some additional things, or if you need somebody that tows you back to the next best city. That can be expensive. So overall, just make sure you're prepared, that you don't run in any bad situation beforehand, or do everything you could in that regards. Now we talk about mistake number 8, ignoring wildlife and park regulations. Of course, if you plan a trip to Canada, you plan it because you know Western Canada is stunning, but they're also strictly regulated, the parks. And that combo might surprise a lot of people. And while it seems harmless to approach wildlife, it's strictly forbidden, and you could get fined for it, and with quite high prices. Another thing is ignoring shuttle requirements at certain places like Morin Lake. It hasn't been there a few years ago, but now you need a shuttle to get to Morin Lake. And if you forget to look at this and forget to book a shuttle service, you'll not be able to go there at all. Other things is what I've spotted regularly on our trips are littering signs that tells you don't throw away your garbage. Make sure you throw it into a garbage bin, because you get fined for it, and quite high. I think over $1,000, might be even higher. Don't get me wrong. I would need to look it up again, but that's an important thing, and you don't want to get yourself into trouble, especially with wildlife. So another topic that most people don't think about it, and it's actually a planning mistake that happens readily to us, and we know it, is budgeting evenly across regions. Costs in Western Canada can vary dramatically between provinces, and that is related to the sales taxes. And the most expensive one is BC, while Alberta is way lower than BC, and also Saskatchewan and Manitoba are well known that they're consistently ranked among Canada's most affordable provinces, and the differences aren't small. So sales taxes in Alberta are around 5%, in BC I think 12% if I'm not mistaken. And what you don't realize when you buy things, usually the price that is shown on the price tag isn't the end price. You always have to add on top the sales taxes, and that's where most people get surprised. that it's actually way more expensive than anticipated. And that's where it's necessary that you plan accordingly the trip, where you want to invest in certain things like clothing, souvenirs, whatever you name it, and then budget it evenly across your trip. In our case, for example, on our 2 months trip, we decided to buy stuff in Alberta or maybe in Edmonton. We're going to go to the West Edmonton Mall because we know the taxes are lower. So doing shopping in Edmonton is way cheaper than it would be in Vancouver. So smart budgeting allocates more. So smart budgeting includes investing your stuff to less high cost regions and always look for free alternatives where they exist. And with that I mean attractions. Famous example is, instead of going to the Capilano Suspension Bridge Park, go to Lynn Canyon, for example, which is free of charge. This way you basically know what's coming. And mistake number 10, that's what I've already highlighted before, is paying for the wrong attraction. And this is about spending money where it's actually worth it. Not every paid attraction in Western Canada is worth the price. Some are heavily marketed and you easily pay around $40 to $60 per person, which again adds up tremendously if you travel with a family. And some of these things and experiences you can do with a free hike or a short walk to a viewpoint, totally free of charge. So before you go, always ask a question: is this problem solving an access problem, or is it just convenience? And is it worth the price? One example is the Icefields Parkway Cliff Walk or Skywalk, which is around $40 if I'm not mistaken per person. And to be honest, there are viewpoints before that place and afterwards that gives you the same or similar experience, scenic viewpoints as you would get there. So totally overpriced attraction. I don't recommend it to anyone. Of course it's beautiful, but you can use that money for something different. So Western Canada is one of the most extraordinary places you will ever do a road trip on. But it doesn't reward you with casual planning. What is the difference between an expensive, rushed road trip and a calm, intentional? Easy, it's preparation. And if you want help building smarter Western Canada itinerary from home, I've got you covered. I've got a free Western Canada travel kit linked below with route templates, checklists, tools that I actually use. And if you have any questions, let me know. Just grab it, start planning, and travel smarter, of course. And if you found this helpful, drop a comment below with which mistake surprised you the most. I'd love to hear from you, and I'm glad to answer any comments you have.